Frieza, let's take a moment to reflect, shall we? Now, you and I both know that your track record isn't exactly spotless. I mean, blowing up planets, that's quite the resume. You've got ambition, no doubt. But somewhere along the way, you might have missed the memo. Absolute power doesn't mean absolute destruction. Remember that time you wiped out the Cyan race? That was a real low point. You saw a proud people with potential, but instead of fostering that potential, you decided, boom, just gone. Now imagine for a moment if you had given them a chance, shown them some mercy. You could have had an entire race of allies, not enemies. You see, sometimes when we feel threatened, we lash out. But strength isn't measured by how much you can destroy. It's measured by how much you can build. And let's be real, you've been focusing on the wrong side of that equation. When I walked the Earth, Frieza, I encountered people who had gone down some pretty dark paths. Tax collectors, soldiers, even thieves. They weren't exactly popular, but I didn't show them the door. Instead, I showed them a new way. And guess what? Many of them turned around. People have the potential to change, Frieza. Even you. Now I know what you're thinking. You're the emperor of the universe, right? You think you're beyond any need for self-reflection. But that's where you're wrong. Look, if I can spend time with people like the Pharisees, who were convinced they knew it all, you can take a moment to pause and think. When you decimate worlds, what do you actually gain? Is the destruction itself what brings you joy? Or is it the illusion of control that comes afterward? Control, Frieza. It's a fragile thing. You think it's absolute, but in reality, you're only as powerful as the fear people have of you. The moment that fear fades, so does your grip on them. But here's the thing about fear. It's fickle. People eventually get tired of being afraid. They start to rebel. They look for cracks in your armor, and before you know it, your empire crumbles. History's filled with stories of tyrants who thought they were untouchable, but it never ends well for them. Trust me on this one. But here's the kicker, Frieza. Fear only controls people for so long. What if instead of fear, you inspired respect? I'm not talking about ruling through intimidation. I'm talking about using that vast cosmic power of yours to actually do some good. Imagine this. You step onto a planet, and instead of people trembling in terror, they actually celebrate your arrival. You could still be the most powerful being in the universe, but people wouldn't fear you. They'd trust you. Now that's real power. That's the kind of legacy you want, right? I know you're probably rolling your eyes. Jesus, what do you know about ruling? Well, I may not have had an empire, but I know a thing or two about leadership. And let me tell you, leading through love is a lot harder than leading through fear. It requires patience, forgiveness, and yes, a bit of humility. But it also leaves behind something far more lasting. Empires built on fear always crumble, but legacies built on love, they stand the test of time. Look, Frieza, I get it. It's hard to give up power, especially when it's all you've ever known. But I'm not asking you to become weak. In fact, it takes far more strength to change course than to keep doing the same old thing. You've been the destroyer long enough. Why not try being the protector for once? You've got the power, no one can deny that. But real strength is knowing when to use it, and more importantly, when not to. Now, Frieza, let's talk about something I know a lot about: forgiveness. I can already hear you scoffing at the idea. Why should I care about forgiveness? You might be asking. Well, it's not about making you weak. On the contrary, it's one of the strongest things you can do. And here's why. You've spent most of your life holding grudges, haven't you? The Saiyans, the Z fighters, Vegeta. Every slight, Every perceived insult, you've held on to it like it's the most precious thing in the galaxy. But do you know what that's doing to you? It's eating you up from the inside. Trust me, Frieza, it's exhausting keeping that much hate alive. You've got all this power, yet you're imprisoned by your own anger. That's no way to live. I once said, love your enemies. And I know that sounds like the ultimate cliché, but here's the truth. It's liberating. It frees you from being consumed by vengeance. Look at Goku, the guy you seem to hate more than anyone. No matter how many times you've tried to destroy him, he just keeps getting stronger. Want to know why? Because he doesn't carry that kind of baggage. He forgives. He moves on. It makes him better. Now, I'm not saying you and Goku need to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but letting go of that bitterness could do wonders for you. Picture this. You, the great Frieza, walking away from a fight, not because you've lost, but because you've grown beyond the need to prove yourself. That's real power, Frieza. Not needing to conquer every enemy, but rising above them. Think about all those planets you've conquered. What did it really get you? Temporary satisfaction, a few fleeting moments of control, and then what? Another planet, another conquest, another war. It's a vicious cycle that never ends. But forgiveness? That ends the cycle. It stops the constant need for revenge and opens the door to something much more meaningful. Peace. Yeah, I said it. Peace. And before you laugh, hear me out. Peace doesn't mean you stop being powerful. It just means you stop letting that power define you. Imagine how much lighter you'd feel if you let go of all that resentment. You'd be unstoppable, but not in the way you think. People would follow you, not because they fear you, but because they admire the strength it took for you to change. And believe me, Frieza, that's the kind of strength that lasts. Now you're probably wondering, why should I forgive them? They don't deserve it. Maybe they don't. But here's the thing. It's not for them. Forgiveness is for you. It releases you from the chains of your own anger. It's like cleaning out the clutter from your heart, so you have room for something better. I mean, Frieza, when was the last time you felt truly at peace? Not the calm before you destroy a planet, but genuine, lasting peace. I'm willing to bet it's been a while. And look, I get it. It's not easy. Some things feel unforgivable, but you'd be surprised at how much your own soul will heal once you make that choice. You've spent so much time breaking things, planets, lives, relationships. Maybe it's time to start fixing some things. You might just find it's more rewarding than ruling over rubble. And hey, if nothing else, forgiving Vegeta could really mess with his head. Imagine his face when you tell him you're over it. That's almost worth it just for the reaction, don't you think? Now let's talk about doing good, Frieza. I know. You're probably thinking that doing good is for the weak, for those who can't handle the weight of power. But let me give you a different perspective. Good deeds, acts of kindness, they're not just some moral obligation. They have real, tangible effects. Every action you take sends out ripples. Right now, your actions spread fear and suffering across galaxies. But imagine if, instead of destruction, you started using your power to help others. Picture the ripple effect of that. One act of kindness, one moment of mercy. It could spread farther than you realize. You help one planet rebuild instead of destroy it, and suddenly that planet is stronger. Their people start helping each other, maybe even reaching out to other worlds. Before you know it, you've created a web of good that's more powerful than any empire you've ever built. The thing is, Frieza, power isn't just about bending others to your will. It's about lifting people up, helping them reach their potential. You've got that power. You could be the force that brings entire galaxies together, not under fear, but under hope. And think of the legacy that would leave behind. Empires rise and fall, but hope that lasts forever. I know you're probably thinking, but what's in it for me? That's fair. It's hard to see the value of doing good when you've been all about conquest. But let me tell you a secret. When you help others, it ends up helping you too. It's funny how that works. The more good you put out into the universe, the more it comes back to you. You'd be amazed at how much more rewarding it is to be remembered as a hero rather than a villain. Plus, good deeds have this funny way of snowballing. You do one good thing, and it leads to another and another. Pretty soon, you've got a reputation for being the guy who turns things around, not the one who destroys everything. Think about it, Frieza. Wouldn't it be nice to walk into a room and hear people say, "Thank goodness Frieza is here," instead of, "Oh no, it's Frieza again"? That's the kind of reputation you can't buy with all the power in the universe. And here's the kicker. Doing good doesn't mean you stop being strong. It means you start using that strength for something that lasts. Destruction. That's easy. Any fool can tear down a building. But to build something up, to help people grow, thrive, and succeed, that takes real strength, real vision. You've got that in you, Frieza, whether you believe it or not. Frieza, you've got power. No one's denying that. But let me ask you something. What's the point of all that power if it has no purpose? You've been chasing domination for so long, but for what? To prove you're the strongest, to silence anyone who stands in your way. You're not the first to take that path, and you certainly won't be the last. But here's what separates you from the others. You have the chance to turn that power into something meaningful,